Hey everyone, welcome to the Twisted Wrister Hockey Podcast. I'm doing something a little bit differently for this episode here. So, I'm actually uploading this to YouTube and also to Rumble, but we're also going to make audio like this available here on Spotify. So, we're doing a big simulcast, if you want to call it that. So, first time doing that. Apologies if there are any bugs with this, but I'm excited to be talking to our audiences across multiple platforms here, especially right when the NHL season gets started. It's great to finally have hockey back. The offseason seemed like it took forever. And last night, we were treated into some excellent games. We saw Connor Bedard's debut with the Chicago Blackhawks against the Pittsburgh Penguins, going against Sidney Crosby. We'll dive into the Vegas Golden Knights as they're defending their Stanley Cup. Started last night with a contest against the Seattle Kraken, and of course there was that hit by Brett Howden on Brandon Tanev, so we'll touch on that. And of course, the Tampa Bay Lightning also had their first game of the season as their power play went to work against first-year head coach, first full year as head coach for Andrew Brunette and the Nashville Predators. And we'll talk about a couple other topics, mostly around some major contract extensions leading up to opening day. So it's great to have you here, everybody. We are a podcast that will service every single fan base out there in the NHL. And here we go, man. So yeah, last night we had, of course, Connor Bedard's debut with the Chicago Blackhawks. They traveled to Pittsburgh. It was awesome because, for two of these games, we had a couple of our most dedicated viewers at the games and actually interacting with myself and the folks who were part of our live stream. So big thank you to everybody who tuned into last night's live stream. It was the late game for the Kraken and Golden Knights. But yeah, we had some people check in with us from Pittsburgh and also from Vegas. So Connor Bedard, what do you guys think of his debut? He was throwing just about everything on goal. He had 5 shots on goal total, a lot of other missed shots, but he looked comfortable offensively. He was driving some of the play out there. Not any like big flashy dangles, not so much in the way of that. We did see some of that from him in the preseason. But yeah, it was cool just with the way that the game got started. You had referee Kelly Sutherland, saying, "Oh, Sydney, it's great to have you here, or great to see you again." Going on whatever 18 years. And then he said, "Connor, welcome to the NHL." Now, Connor didn't necessarily have that welcome to the NHL moment. That kind of came in the preseason when Marc-Andre Fleury had tripped him on a shootout. We also saw Adam Fantilli get drilled by TJ Oshie in his last preseason game. But yeah, there wasn't a moment quite like that in last night's game. He did draw some contact, though. There were some Penguins who finished his checks on him. But as we've seen with Bedard, even though he's not exactly the biggest player out there, 5'10", 185 pounds, he's asserting himself in front of the net. I didn't see that as much last night. He was playing a little bit more like a winger, I would say, but he still looked comfortable. I thought Kevin Korchinski in his debut looked fairly comfortable in the limited time I paid attention to him. Bedard's, he had a couple of defensive plays that were subpar. You could say that he was partially at fault for that goal that Crosby scored to make the game 2-0. I thought that he was cheating up too high in the zone to anticipate a transition opportunity. So he will. I've seen that a few other times from him in the preseason. This is very limited action where I'm judging him, but he will learn quickly that maybe the pace of play isn't going to exactly resemble what he experiences in the WHL in previous years. Peter Mrazek, great game from him. I thought that he almost stole the show. He's kind of the player of the game, at least I think so. He had a couple of great saves off of Erik Karlsson, a good glove save off him early. He stopped a Sidney Crosby breakaway, had a good save on Rust, who did get on the board, by the way. But overall, excellent game for him in net. And Sidney Crosby, of course, getting one of those goals and winning a lot of those faceoffs against Bedard. Bedard was only 15.4% in the faceoff circle. He was about 44%, I think, in the preseason. But the Blackhawks, despite being down 2-0, they did come back and win this game. So it all started, you could say, with a pass off the boards from Connor Bedard, a nice give and go to Alex Vlasic. And then Ryan Donato ultimately stuffed that home. I was surprised to see Donato paired with Bedard. I did see a little bit of Donato in San Jose playing some top 6 minutes with an inferior roster. But yeah, he got the call to play up there with him. Then it was Cole Guttman tying things up. I had never actually even heard of this guy. That's how the Blackhawks are a pretty green roster, or players who normally wouldn't be playing starting opening day for an NHL club. But he tied things up. Jason Dickinson helped the Hawks take the lead. And, they had basically built momentum at this point. And Nick Foligno added the empty netter as Chicago won 4-2. The two goals, again, for the Penguins coming off the stick of Brian Rust. A very nice tip play for him. No chance for Mrazek there. And also, of course, the captain, Sidney Crosby, who did have himself a very strong game. And yeah, you had a lot of Penguins out there who these were their debuts in black and gold. Erik Karlsson, chief among them. At first, when I saw him out there, it was a bit of a weird look. I am a Sharks fan, for people who don't know, so I was used to seeing him in teal. But yeah, he wasn't really unleashed in this game. He didn't, have that extra burst of speed, driving transition like he did in this past season with the Sharks. He was on power play 1. That was also kind of a surprise, kind of taking over that role from Chris Letang, who's quarterbacking the second unit. So it wasn't anything like what we saw with Karlsson in San Jose, maybe early on when he had to play alongside Brent Burns, or at least be on the same team as him. He was a -2 out there. I didn't think either goal, he didn't really have anything to do with either of those goals, but I did see him get kind of caught up high in the zone. And there wasn't, the team around him hadn't switched positions essentially to keep some of the net front traffic out. But that didn't end up costing Karlsson. And actually, he made some fine defensive plays otherwise. I thought his debut was a little lackluster, but again, it wasn't like he was getting a lot of opportunities out there. You had other Penguins making their debuts, like Riley Smith, of course, who had won a cup with the Vegas Golden Knights. Seeing Lars Eller in black and gold might be a little unusual for Washington Capitals fans. And yeah, of course, the Penguins will have to go back to the drawing board. I think that the pieces eventually will gel better together. And as for the Hawks, they're already on the road to face the Bruins the next night. So again, we get to watch more Connor Bedard. All right. So I think that's a fair recap for that. Then we go to our second game that I want to talk about. I know the first game was Tampa versus Nashville, but really the attention here, we know where it is. So the Vegas Golden Knights, of course, raised their Stanley Cup banner last night. Mark Stone brought out the Stanley Cup. We had Dustin, one of our loyal viewers here, checking in from T-Mobile Arena. He had actually flown all the way from Alaska. He's been on this lengthy fishing trip over there, and he flew down one evening to go to a preseason game against Chicago. No, it wasn't against Chicago. I don't remember who they were playing, but he flew all the way down from Alaska. That's got to be one hell of a trek. And then he flew down to see the banner raising. He said he absolutely had to be in that building. And so that must have been an awesome experience. He was telling us that the noise levels inside the arena were pretty ear-shattering. But, initially I thought Seattle was kind of dictating the pace. This is kind of the game that the Knights actually do play and thrive in. But Seattle was dominating possession, I thought, early on. The cycle game was good. They were able to prolong possessions in the Vegas zone. But as we've seen before, the Golden Knights are such an opportunistic team, and they can capitalize on mistakes very well. We saw that in transition. Brett Howden with a great feed to Chandler Stevenson, who buries his first goal of the season. And then that second goal, man, that was just kind of an awful play. It was Marchessault getting his stick. When you have your stick positioned properly, right, that can lead to good things. And in this case, Brandon Tanev was just trying to, I think, slam a pass off the boards to, sort of clear it out of the crease. And there's Marchessault's stick, and that's a goal. Now, granted, the Kraken did get a goal off of a deflection similarly later on. And then, of course, we saw the Ivan Barbashev goal. I think that was to start the third period on what was a gorgeous feed from Braden McNabb. That's got to be the best play he's ever made offensively. And to his credit, that was an excellent pass, looking almost like, somebody who was competing for the Norris Trophy last year. And then Jack Eichel added the empty net goal, the lone goal for the Kraken, scored by Jared McCann. I thought that Seattle still played fairly well. They're rolling the four lines just like they did last year, similar combinations. I thought Kyler Yamamoto had a great debut for them. He really did get a significant amount of opportunities, and just the motor kept going for him. I really liked what I saw from him after coming over from the Oilers, who basically had a cap dump to stay more salary cap compliant. And Eeli Tolvanen continues to be, I think, one of the more effective forwards for the Kraken out there. But yeah, the Golden Knights, they were strong as the game progressed defensively, and the penalty kill was excellent for them. They clogged up the middle exceptionally well, and they've shown that they're really good at killing penalties, even if it's a 5-minute major. So yeah, unfortunately, in the third period, Brandon Tanev was struck in the head by Brett Howden, and we've seen, at least on X, that there will be a hearing for him with the Department of Player Safety. I personally thought that this hit was avoidable. Howden was making a beeline, albeit toward the puck, and Howden had the puck in his vicinity when the hit occurred. And some people might say that, yeah, Tanev was a little bit crouched down there as Howden was kind of bracing for the impact. But, the shoulder comes up and principally makes contact with Tanev's head. It was an ugly sight, certainly, for what was otherwise a very fun game to watch, I thought. And so, Howden doesn't have a track record. He's not like a repeat offender. I think that, he could very well get suspended for this, but I don't think this will be a particularly heavy one. Either way, I hope that Tanev's okay. He's certainly a heart and soul player for this Kraken team. But yeah, that was just something that I think can be avoided personally. So anyway, you guys can let me know your thoughts about that further. And then also we had the Tampa Bay Lightning taking on the Nashville Predators. Actually, I'll share my screen. I meant to actually do that here. So then that way we get a visual, we get a box score, right? So it was all about the Tampa Bay Lightning power play. So they connected a few times this evening here. 2 for 5. I thought maybe they might have scored one of their goals as kind of a power play influence goal. But yeah, this was a game where you have the Lightning without Vasilevsky for about 2 months. And even so, they have great weapons on this team, and they're going to have to actually kind of carry things, right? So, of course, Kucherov, Stamkos, Point, Nick Paul had 2 goals for them this last night. And, the forward depth, I think, might be a bit of a weakness as we get more in toward the bottom 6. They have a completely new bottom 6, so I have to get more familiar with those players. But the guys who, kind of led the way for them last year and in previous years did their job this past evening. So Nick Paul with 2 of those goals. Nikita Kucherov added the empty netter, and Kucherov added 2 goals. He opened the scoring on a great one-timer with some traffic in front of the net. Ryan O'Reilly scoring a goal in his debut for Nashville. I thought Thomas Novak had a beauty of a goal. That was the tying goal in the third period about halfway through, but then Tampa just took it the rest of the way. It's kind of hard for me to get caught up with this game when, the big storylines were the other 2 games. But yeah, that was a really exciting game. It looked like Tampa was going to just run Nashville out of the building early on. And then the Preds just kind of slowly crept their way back in there. You've got Jonas Johansson out there in goal for the Tampa Bay Lightning. He ended up stopping 28 of 31. And then on the other side of things, you say Saros, of course, not being credited for the 5th goal, only 29 of 33. I thought he still made some good stops. He's conceding goals to some great talent for the Lightning. We had a penalty shot, right, with Brandon Hagel scoring. I love penalty shots, even though I don't really care for shootouts all that much. A penalty shot on opening day is very exciting. So, this one had sort of that back and forth feel as the game progressed. I enjoyed watching this one probably the most, but of course, we had other great storylines in our other games. So Tampa coming away with a 5-3 victory. Chicago, of course, crawling back to win 4-2 after being down 2-0. And the Golden Knights holding serve at home. And I mean, that's a good start for them. They looked very similar to the team that we saw winning the Stanley Cup and just kind of cruising, I thought, for the most part, all of last year, including in the postseason. And then also, I want to recap some of the major contracts that we saw out there just a couple days leading up to the start of the regular season. So the first one, this is the biggest one that we'll touch on here. Rasmus Dahlin, he signs a deal all the way through 2032 at a cap hit annually of $11 million. So that will make him I think, the second highest paid defenseman in the NHL. Not even Makar's even, I think, at 9.5. So has Dahlin earned this sort of contract? Well, I think, yeah. With the way that the salary cap is expected to rise, with Dahlin contributing a lot offensively, playing nasty on defense, and being a front runner for the Norris Trophy for the next couple of seasons, you would think, or at least in that conversation, I think that he's earned it. And he's only 23 years old right now. So this contract will take him all the way until he's 32 years old. And we even see players like Roman Josi and Erik Karlsson playing at a very high level at that point in their careers. And it's got a full no move clause after the first year. So we're talking about 7 years of a full no move clause. And really, I think that they could certainly afford that. I'm very happy for Dahlin. And I have to give credit to Kevin Adams and the management over there for, for the most part, just doing a great job with the salary cap. Tage Thompson, he's signed long term at under $8 million. That's a steal. Dylan Cousins had a nice extension in the offseason of over $7 million. But that's a really good deal as the cap continues to rise for a second line center. And then when you look at the deals that they have coming up after this season, you have Victor Olofsson, Zemgus Girgensons. I'm always terrible at pronouncing that one. Captain Kyle Okposo, Tyson Jost, Peyton Krebs as an RFA, Eric Johnson, Henry Yoki Haru, Jacob Bryson, Owen Power. That will probably be the biggest contract. But right now, the Sabres, $8.8 million to play with. They're doing a good job. The only bad contract here, and I think it's from a previous regime, was for Jeff Skinner. He signed at $9 million annually through 2027. So congratulations to Dahlin. Great job by the Sabres. And yeah, we're going to see more aggressive. We'll see some aggressive moves in addition to this team, signing their cornerstones to appropriate deals. So good job there. The other big signing, or two signings, happened in Winnipeg, where, I mean, we've been talking about the possibility of these players possibly being traded in Mark Scheifele and also Connor Hellebuyck. So they have been signed to identical deals at 7 years and $8.5 million per season. They both carry the same terms and conditions. So we'll click into one of these here to actually, look at the details. So here, for example, is Mark Scheifele's deal. This carries a full no move clause for the first 3 years, and then it becomes a modified no trade clause for the last 4 years. And that modified NTC is a 10-team no trade list. So it's not the harshest out there if, the Jets find themselves in the need of needing to retool. So you have that deal. And again, it's identical for Connor Hellebuyck. Both of these players, has Hellebuyck, is he 30 at this point? Yeah. So both of these players are now 30 years old. Mark Scheifele just had 42 goals this past season. So he's going to be a key piece to this offense for the foreseeable future. Now, I was surprised to see him signed at this term. The Jets kind of continue to run things back with their core. Of course, Wheeler left with his contract expiring. But yeah, you have Kyle Connor under contract for 3 more years. You have Nikolai Ehlers for 2 years. They don't have Dubois anymore, but you still have those key pieces, right? Connor, Scheifele, Ehlers, Josh Morrissey, Connor Hellebuyck. And, can they get much better with that core that they have right now? That's the question that I'm curious about, because, this team, they've made one deep run with this core that came back in the 2018 playoffs when they got to the conference final, but they don't have any other playoff series victories, or at least in a 7-game series as part of this group. So I do find this a little bit of maybe an overpayment. I mean, Hellebuyck, to me, Hellebuyck earns it, right? He's been magnificent, and some think he's the best goaltender out there. And it's hard to really, say that there's anyone who's that much better than Connor Hellebuyck. To me, I think he's at least a top 3 goaltender. So I think he's earned it. Scheifele, on the other hand, I mean, I look at the Jets prospect group, right? You want these veterans still contributing at a high level when some of the top prospects come in. And, with the Winnipeg Jets, you have Cole Perfetti, right? He had his rookie season last year. You have Chaz Lucius, Rucker McRorty, Brad Lambert, and Colby Barlow from this year's draft. And a couple of those guys play center. And I wonder, are they trying to invest too much in this veteran group if they're not going to get much better once some of these other younger players come in? That's I think I'm getting my point across okay. Shifley would have had a lot of value. And to me, the Jets, they would have an opportunity, I think, to get better even without Mark Scheifele. If they traded him out and got some draft picks, for example, I look at their defense and I think that they could use one more stud defenseman, kind of like Josh Morrissey. I look at the free agency market next year. You've got Brandon Montour, who is a right shot. Morrissey's a left shot. And Montour just tore it up in Florida this past season, especially offensively. You have Devon Taves, an excellent all-zone defenseman. He's due for a pretty nice contract. And, I mean, to play on a team like Winnipeg, I think that he could drive a fair amount of offense from their backside. And Brett Pesce for Carolina, again, a good all-zone defenseman. So, and a right shot too. So, these players, would they command what Mark Scheifele earns? Maybe so. But I think that they have a greater need for their defense because when you look at the prospect pool, they don't have any blue chip prospects on defense right now. I don't consider Ville Heinola. Is that the guy? I don't know if he's going to pan out to be a top pairing defenseman. So I just don't see eye to eye with what Cheveldayoff's doing there. We were talking about how after that playoff series was over against the Knights, do they need a coaching change? Because clearly Rick Bowness was not happy with that group of players, and not everybody from that group is gone. Some of those players are still around, or Cheveldayoff was his job on the line. So that's where my disagreement is. But of course, I don't tune into the Jets as best as I could. And I mean, but yeah, Hellebuck, cool. If you really want to go all in, you have to have Connor Hellebuck as part of this. No ifs, ands, or buts. We also had a couple of coaches being extended as well. So the first one is Todd McClellan with the Los Angeles Kings. He was signed to a 1-year extension, which will expire at the end of the 2024-25 season. The Kings, when they were kind of tearing down or at least retooling, I don't even know if you could call it a rebuild with what Rob Blake did. Kudos to him. This team only missed the playoffs, I think, in 2019, 20, and 21, when it looked like, they were due for quite a journey down a long, dark tunnel. But McClellan, to his credit, has helped turn things around over there. Rob Blake has made some aggressive moves to get players like Kevin Fiala and now Pierre-Luc Dubois. And you have a couple of younger players like Quentin Byfield and, Arthur Kaliev and maybe Alex Turcotte. And so this team could be sort of a sexy pick to maybe make a run at the Stanley Cup. Goaltending aside, I think that they are pretty strong. They can attack, right? But now the pressure is on, right? They've lost the last 2 playoff series in the first round to the Edmonton Oilers. I think that if he wants to keep his job beyond that year, he's going to have to start winning some playoff series. And who knows, maybe he has to go through the Oilers, the team he used to coach before, he can actually earn another extension beyond that year. But yeah, McClellan he's won some playoff series in the past before with the Oilers and also with the Sharks. The other extension, Lindy Ruff, congratulations to him. He has been signed to a multi-year extension with the New Jersey Devils. And of course, last year, right, there was Fire Lindy at the very beginning of the year. And then this team goes on a pretty historic turnaround. Now, I'm curious to see if they show any signs of regression. I do think it's interesting to kind of observe that, yeah, they did lose their assistant coach in Andrew Brunette. Is that going to keep them out of the playoffs? I wouldn't think so. But they do have a lot of young players, and they have more coming in to this organization who should be making a high impact. Luke Hughes, we'll see probably a full season for him. But yeah, kudos to Ruff. I think that he's absolutely earned this deal. And the Devils, of course, winning their first playoff series since 2012 and doing so against their biggest rival right now, the New York Rangers. So we'll see if they can, get a little bit deeper in the playoffs. And, they were a team that I had talked about. Yeah, maybe they do pursue somebody like Connor Hellebuck. But now with Hellebuck on the market or off the market, that kind of narrows their options. But again, somebody like Yusei Saros could be available if Barry Trotz, believes in Yaroslav Askarov. So Devils hockey is going to be really exciting over the next few seasons. All right. The last thing that I wanted to kind of wrap up with, well, first of all, Barry Melrose for ESPN, unfortunately, has had to retire after being diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. So we wish that Melrose has the care and that he needs, and that all of his loved ones are available to be with him. And at 67 years old, it does pain us to see that. He's been an analyst on ESPN since 1996, and of course, his charm, his charisma, the mullet, right, his outfits, especially over the years, really, that has been a staple to his presentation, I suppose. And he succeeded as a coach, coaching the LA Kings to the Cup final in 1993. He's had over 50 years dedicated to professional hockey, and the crew at ESPN and a lot of fans out there will sorely miss him. I saw this news courtesy of John Buccigross, who him and Melrose were they came to ESPN during sort of that golden age, or at least what I consider that golden age, when you had great personalities on there like the late Stuart Scott, like Rich Eisen, Dan Patrick. And so Buccigross broke this on Twitter yesterday. He said, or on X, quote, "I've worked with Barry at ESPN for over a quarter century. Cold beers and hearty laughs in smoky cigar bars. A razor sharp wit. He was always early and looked like $1 million. I love him. I'll miss him." All right. And so in action tonight, we have 6 games. Just to wrap up here, we've got the Ottawa Senators against the Carolina Hurricanes. And I think that both teams will be missing top players, big names for them. Josh Norris will be out for the Senators, and also Andrei Svechnikov for the Hurricanes. As I mentioned earlier, the Blackhawks have to get back on the road. So they're in Boston right now, and the Bruins will host the first game of their 100th season wearing their completely new set of uniforms. Those are fun to see. I love the gold detailing in those. And so Connor Bedard will have his first game against an Original Six franchise. Hopefully I'm going for a night hike tonight. I'll probably miss that one, but I'll absolutely watch some highlights. We've got the Colorado Avalanche taking on the Los Angeles Kings. And some of you out there might actually have predicted that this could be a possible conference finals matchup. And then we have 3 great Canadian matchups tonight, including the Toronto Maple Leafs against the Montreal Canadiens. No better way to start the season, right? The Edmonton Oilers against the Vancouver Canucks. We'll see if the Canucks look like they did toward the end of last year under the leadership of Rick Tocchet. And we've got the Winnipeg Jets versus the Calgary Flames. And that's another team, right? Are they going to be able to hang on to their veterans with some key contracts due at the end of the season, like Noah Hannafin and also Elias Lindholm? All right, well, we're going to wrap up here, guys. For those of you on YouTube or Rumble, let me know if you have any suggestions for how we can make this better. Again, this is my first time kind of doing this, and we'll hopefully have more podcasts like this in the future. So again, check us out on Spotify and also on Rumble. I'll be uploading a lot of my YouTube content to Rumble as well, just to expand our footprint. Cortana, you get another treat for being a good girl. For those listening, Cortana is my dog. You guys have a great one out there, and we'll have some more NHL hockey to recap very soon.